I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. You know, 1 week ago tonight, our morning temperatures were down in the mid-30s, and there was still a decent amount of snow and ice on the ground. Here on The Story, we talked about the closing of the emergency shelters for the homeless. In my opinion, and in a lot of yours, they closed way too early. And as we've looked into the issues surrounding those shelters, it's become one more example of the dysfunction of Oregon's largest county based on population. And that is our big story tonight. Multnomah County opened 12 emergency shelters to help homeless people survive the snow and ice storm. Then on Wednesday, January 17th, they were closed. County Chair Jessica Vega-Peterson and Chief Operating Officer Serena Cruz made the decision. They pointed to their metrics, which help inform whether to open the shelters or not. The metrics include when the forecasted temperatures will hit 25 degrees or lower, or if temperatures are forecast to be 32 degrees with an inch of rain overnight. The thresholds must continue for at least 4 hours and happen between 8 p.m. and 7 a.m. If those metrics are hit, the shelters open. If not, they close. Those county leaders relied on a forecast that expected temperatures to hit 40 degrees on Wednesday afternoon, and because of that, they ordered the shelters closed Wednesday morning. However, the weather did not change, and it stayed frigid. But county leaders said it was already too late to open again, and more than 1,000 people were forced out into the frozen streets. One of the many people furious about that decision to close early is Multnomah County Commissioner Sharon Myron. She's also an emergency room doctor. She says she was not consulted before the decision was made. I had a chance to talk with her about that, and since we love to take deep dives here on The Story and bring you along, here's an extended clip from our conversation about the decision to close the shelters and what it says about the county's lack of competence in this area.
I thought it was abhorrent.
How come?
I mean, for so many reasons. The bottom line is just from a common sense human standpoint of thinking about people who are most vulnerable in our community, who are getting respite and warmth and shelter from the storm, and you're basically kicking them out into the ice and cold. And that, to me, that just shocks my conscience.
Yeah. Well, and we heard, you know, that some of the rationale was, well, we have these metrics, but it's not like God came down from heaven and delivered these on stone tablets.
No.
These are guidelines that are set up by the county.
By the ones deciding to close the shelters because of the metrics. I mean, it's sort of this circular argument. In my view, the standards themselves need to be reevaluated, and I've actually expressed this to county leadership for years. And then even if the standards aren't met, then we need to use discretionary factors. You know, like literally put a foot outside the door and recognize that this is not habitable weather, and then make a decision and adjust based on that.
Do you think that'll change?
I hope so. I have to say, we've seen situations of more and more people dying on our streets even without the extreme weather, with more and more unprecedented amounts of money, and been calling for, can we do things to stop people from dying on our streets? Haven't seen that change. So trying really hard. Hopefully there'll be enough of a public outcry to make some things happen. Okay. And I think one thing there, it's important to note, a lot of people don't know who makes these decisions, how they're made. The decisions are made by the county chair with the county chief operating officer, who is Serena Cruz. So they're the ones that determine the standards, that make the decisions whether to stay open or close, and that is exclusively in their purview. And they do not, I did not know, for example, before the shelters were closed that they were going to be closed. So
that's not something they share as far as the decision making.
This is not something shared in terms of decision making.
Interesting. And we just saw in Willamette Week that you all had commissioned an outside review.
Well, that's another thing. That had never been shared with commissioners. I didn't even know that happened. So there's this stuff that happens that kind of the chair takes over and is doing behind these closed doors with folks at the city. And I honestly, I think what the analysis said, it said it best when I was reading some of it. It said it was, I think, disjointed, ineffective, and a communications black hole. I think those are the key points they made, and that's what it is. And thank heavens, the one silver lining from this is that it's being exposed so that people can be outraged and call for change, and maybe the people in charge will hear that.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, it's just hard to believe.
It's
until you look at the results and you go, oh, yeah, okay. It seemed like it wasn't working. Now we know why.
I think that's a lot of the stuff is, and before I ran for office, I was thinking, it doesn't seem like it's working, and maybe I can get there and figure some stuff out. And at the county, the chair has the power to do a lot of the work. But I at least I'm like, oh, that's why it's not working. It's pretty clear.
And it's silos and dysfunction.
The reason is it's fragmentation, it's those silos, it's dysfunction, it's churn in leadership. For example, in our health department, we've had I think it's 6 different health department leaders in 7 years, 5 behavioral health directors in 6 years. I mean, that kind of churn, you can't do anything with that kind of leadership void.
Yeah.
So
because people who don't want to change don't have to. They can just wait out the director.
They can just wait it out, and I think there's been a lot of waiting things out, and also the things that have been in play for a long time, they functioned okay, and were able to fly under the radar while, without any stressors on the system. So you could say, as this house of cards is being built, things are okay, it looks fine, I'm not seeing horrible things, but we've had major stressors on our system, like a confluence of crises. So whether it's behavioral health, fentanyl, mental illness, COVID, extreme heat, extreme cold, fires, those stressors, they're kind of a tornado hitting the house of cards, and it exposes that in fact it's kind of a house of cards and we need to build better.
Well, and I was wondering, why isn't there a citizens corps that's trained up every November, for example, to be ready to help staff these shelters?
So you would wonder that, and you would be very reasonable in wondering why we do not harness the resources of our community.
It's a very giving community.
It's so many people want to help. Yeah. We have the hearts of people who are in this county. I mean, they're so big. In the city of Portland, we just need to give them a place we need to give them the place, the support, the resources, and the organization to do the work they want to do to help. And we just haven't provided any of that infrastructure. That's another area I was talking about at the board meeting that wasn't a board meeting this morning, with someone who came who didn't realize the meeting had been canceled, talking about shelters. But she'd been asking the same question. And she said she had volunteered in the shelters last year. She's like, the lowest hanging fruit would be to reach out to the people who already volunteered in your shelters and say, hey, can you volunteer this year? She's like, no one contacted us. And so we need a robust system of volunteer structure and organization, so we can have the benefit of this really giving community to come, show up, and help out. Yeah. We just need to help do it. Yeah. It's not rocket science.
Well,
I mean, or is it?
Sometimes you wonder. Yesterday, County Chair Jessica Vega Peterson and Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler issued a statement on the warming shelters. It touted all the hard work done by all the city and county employees and all the people who were served. And good for you. I know there was a lot of hard work there. They also committed to working together to improve the way they work for the public. Maybe it's just me, but it feels like we've heard that one before a few times. By the way, that clip I just showed you was only part of the discussion I had with Commissioner Myron Monday night. We'll dip back into that conversation, but this time we're going to be focused on the county's approach to mental health and the crisis we see on our streets. Myron says it's so fragmented that she's now asked the governor to step in and help out. We'll get into that Monday night at 6:30. In the meantime, what do you think about what Commissioner Myron had to say about the warming shelter controversy? Anything surprise you? Let us know, will you? Send us an email. The address is thestory@kgw.com. or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. And Portland City Commissioner Dan Ryan addressed the city's side of the storm response this week on the return of Straight Talk with Laurel Porter. He says the city and the county do need to work on fixing the way that they work together.
The city and the county must be partners. We collaborate. We have handoffs. It's not just in homelessness. It's definitely with public safety. And then just this last week with the snow and ice, we really experienced how challenging it is for the two entities to come together for emergency response. I've always been turned off by finger pointing. It's like that doesn't help. What helps is for us to look in the mirror, know what our role is, improve upon it, and keep showing up as partners and as teammates.
Ryan also announced that he is running for a seat on the new larger city council. He lives in North Portland, so if he's elected, he and two others would represent the district number 2, North and Northeast Portland.
I am a person that has lived in District 2, which is North and Northeast Portland, for the vast majority of my life. A lot of milestones have taken place there, from baptism, kindergarten, graduating from high school. My mom graduated from University of Portland after raising 8 children. My dad's business, family dentistry, was in St. John's for over 30 years. So that's always been my town within the city.
You can check out the entire conversation coming up on Straight Talk. By the way, Laurel Porter has a big announcement about her future here at KGW. You should check that out. It's coming up here next at 7 o'clock. Still ahead on the story, the city of Portland recently cleared the RVs off the notorious stretch of Northeast 33rd Drive, and dozens of homeless people got a spot in a shelter instead. And that's great. But not everyone moved. Some just moved their RVs and camps nearby, and neighbors are less than thrilled. Blair Best shows us where the camps are now and what the city is saying about it when the story returns. Earlier this month, one of Portland's largest homeless camps along Northeast 33rd Drive was cleared out. A total of 64 RVs got towed, but many just kind of relocated to a different part of the city. And neighbors now say that new camp is already causing problems. Blair Best reports.
It's been roughly 2 weeks since Portland crews removed this large homeless camp along Northeast 33rd Drive. But some escaped the tow trucks and moved 2 minutes away to this stretch of Northeast 17th Avenue off Columbia Boulevard.
This is going on week 2.
Since 33rd, however long it's been.
Eric Murillo, who runs a neighboring business, knows exactly how long it's been since they showed up.
Within a day, it almost looked like the whole neighborhood moved over here on 17th.
He runs this steel manufacturing company. RVs now line the gates.
Okay, they're here. Now it's an obstacle for us running our business. Our trucks wanting to go back on Columbia cannot turn left from our exit. They have to turn right and make a loop all the way around to 21st. We're afraid to hit them.
The company has reached out to city and police asking for help.
We're kind of frustrated because there's no answer back of what we can do.
A spokesperson for the city's impact reduction program tells KGW they've received several reports about RVs in this area in the last month. Camp removal crews will check it out next week.
It's only a matter of time before, the garbage piles up and then the police are like, all right, go somewhere else.
On Wednesday, Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler said the city has removed 64 RVs so far this month, and they're on track to remove 450 by the end of the year.
Many of them do not meet even the most basic environmental standards. Some of them are used for illicit activity. If there are people living in them, we always provide outreach opportunities.
57 people who lost their RVs during the removal on 33rd have since moved into shelter, but some either didn't get the chance
I wasn't able to get a voucher for some reason.
or turned it down.
Well, they offer me to go to the little tiny homes, which that's really not helping you in a way because you're still homeless.
If you come here, live here, there are rules.
As for the impact homeless people have on businesses like Murillo's, they get it.
I understand totally. I don't want to be here either, I hate being out here.
Now, I'm about to say something that many of you may be skeptical of because, let's be honest, it doesn't always work and it's not always timely. But as the city tries to keep up with the hundreds of campsites around Portland, they encourage people to report them through PDX Reporter. Now, many of you may think that's not a long-term solution. Where will the homeless people go next? Well, for those living in RVs, the city is building a large sanctioned camp for them, about 10 minutes away from here off North Portland Road. But an opening date has not yet been set. In Northeast Portland, Blair Best, KGW News.
All right, thank you, Blair. In other news, a Washington state man will spend the next 6 years in federal prison for his actions over 3 years ago on January 6th of 2021. Last fall, Mark Brew was found guilty of 7 counts, including obstruction of an official proceeding and civil disorder. And this month, a federal judge gave him that 6-year sentence. 3 years of supervised release and around 10 grand total in fines and restitution. The 44-year-old marched to the U.S. Capitol with a group of Proud Boys, confronting police and eventually going inside the building. Photos show him inside, eventually making his way into the Senate chamber. He spent about 13 minutes inside the Capitol. Prosecutors say 6 weeks later, Brew sent an encrypted message to another Proud Boy detailing plans to conduct an armed insurrection against the government in Oregon, modeled after the Capitol riot. Since his arrest back in March of 2021, Brew has had all kinds of run-ins with the law. While he was on pretrial release, he was arrested twice for DUI, once in Idaho, again in Montana, and he didn't show up in court for either of those, and they are still pending cases. Then on June of 2023, Brew did not show up for a pretrial conference related to his January 6th case. 2 days after that, he was supposed to happen. He posted screenshots on social media of a conversation that he had with someone regarding his failure to appear. He wrote, "Nice. I certified mailed my motion to the prosecutor. I'm done entertaining their bull beep." By the way, that's our asterisk added in there. "If they want me, they'll come get me. I'm drawing an effing line in the sand." Well, doesn't take a rocket scientist to guess what happened next. He failed to show up to court again a few days later, and a warrant was issued, and he was taken into custody in Montana 3 weeks later. Once in front of the judge for sentencing, Brew showed no remorse, telling the judge, "You could give me 100 years, and I would still do it all over again. And arrests for riot at the U.S. Capitol are still happening here locally, including a Milwaukee man taken into custody just this last Tuesday. Willamette Week uncovered the federal court documents that explain this latest case. The feds say this man in the gas mask is 27-year-old Andy Stephen Olivia Lopez. He's charged with multiple federal felonies, including assaulting a Maryland police officer. According to the federal affidavit, phone records show that he was in D.C. on the days leading up to the January 6, 2021 issues. The bank records show a bunch of purchases along Interstate 80 just before all of that happened, suggesting a cross-country trip. Bank statements also show that he bought 2 canisters of bear spray at a Portland sporting goods store just over 2 weeks before January 6th. Investigators also say he's likely using bear spray in this photo, allegedly against police officers trying to protect the Capitol. Coming up next on the story, we're headed to the state of Washington, where lawmakers are considering a new bill to lower the legal blood alcohol limit. It's something the state of Utah has already done, so what do the statistics show? Does it make the roads any safer? We'll have the details when the story returns. We've been talking a lot about Oregon's legislative session that starts in just over a week, and we're going to talk about a lot more, believe me. But lawmakers in the state of Washington have been in session for nearly 3 weeks already. And for the second straight year, they're really looking at lowering the threshold for a DUI. Right now, the blood alcohol concentration limit is 0.08. This new proposal would lower it to 0.05. Steve Solis from our sister station in Seattle has the details.
We've had at least a 33-year high in our traffic fatalities, and impaired driving accounts for more than half of those.
Mark McKenzie with the Washington Traffic Safety Commission says the data explains it all.
We have decades of research showing us that virtually everyone is impaired when their blood alcohol concentration reaches 0.05%.
McKenzie says it affects our vision, our focus, and our ability to react.
Also, really importantly, it impairs our judgment. So our ability to judge our own driving ability and to drive safely is impaired at 0.05.
In the 1980s, Utah was the first state in the nation to lower its BAC from 0.10 to 0.08. In 2018, Utah was once again a trailblazer, enacting a BAC of 0.05.
In 2019, we actually saw a 44% decrease in the amount of alcohol-related fatalities and a 33% decrease in the amount of alcohol-related crashes.
However, during the pandemic, the Utah Highway Patrol saw more people drinking and driving.
During 2020 and 21 and 22 have all shown increases in alcohol-related fatal crashes here in Utah. We are glad to say that in 2023, preliminary data does show that we've seen a decrease in alcohol-related fatalities on the roads as well.
The people behind the law change in Utah want drivers to separate the plan of drinking from the plan of driving.
The intent of this, the overall intent of the 0.05 law was never to arrest more DUIs. It was actually to arrest fewer DUIs because we hope more people would make good decisions.
The Washington Wine Institute says changing the state's BAC level would harm wine, beer, and other hospitality industries. The group says it would like to find a way to protect those businesses while still addressing the ongoing problem of drunk driving.
It's really impairment that we need to focus on first and foremost if we're going to bring those numbers down.
Interesting topic. I'm sure we're going to hear more about that. Hey, that's the end of our show. Thanks so much for watching. And remember, the story, our collective story, that never ends, just goes on and on. Straight Talk with Laurel Porter is coming up next as Laurel sits down with Portland Commissioner Dan Ryan. Stick around for that, and I'll see you right back here on Monday night at 6:30.